Spaetkauf. Berlin news in English.
Thank you and welcome to this live taping of Season 2, Episode 2 of Radio Spaetkauf's collaboration with Europäische Akademie Berlin. Our theme this season, Saving Culture. And tonight our episode is titled Everything is Culture. Quick round of applause for the studio audience here. Thank you. And you know what? Let's clap for the guests I haven't introduced yet, too. There we go. Let's get a workout going. So last December, we decided to embark on the topic of culture this year because it seemed like people were trying to stop it from happening anymore. And so the theme is saving culture. And one of the things that immediately happened as we were generating topics is like, wait, what are we talking about? What is culture? And anytime I tried to sort of put any limits on it, I found that was silly. And even immediately, and we'll get into this specifically, like, so how about sport culture? And I was like, well, that's clearly, and then I thought about Manuel's in the front row being like, yes, I remember this conversation where you were dubious. And then after 30 seconds of thinking about it, I was like, oh, no, that's an important part of how I live my life and share the world with other people, as it turns out. So to set it up a little bit, I guess culture is something that we've had the meaning of it debated as long as it's been a word in our vocabulary. I think like we have cultural artifacts that are about, 40,000 years old at the oldest. And I would just assume that like someone made a cave painting and then someone else like walked by and grunted, and like, like I'm sure that grunt meant something like, you call that art? And I guess whoever did that painting would have been like, I don't know, what's art? Because I hadn't thought of that. But anyway, today we're much smarter, and smart people like me ask questions like, what is art? Okay. We're gonna get into this today. We talk about how some of these old definitions and stratifications and divisions are probably not so useful anymore and don't help any of us to do a better job with sharing human expression, of preserving it or finding new forms of it. And I also, as I was puzzling over this the last few weeks, sort of thinking as open-mindedly as I could about what culture is and how our institutions could broaden their definitions of it, I started to say it's fun to recognize the culture around me, high and low and medium and sort of irrelevant. And I don't think the mics will pick it up, but there was a little baby in the back going while I was talking, which I think is the perfect way to underscore my pseudo-intellectualism during this monologue. So people say is folk art more authentic? Is high art somehow, a sophistication or a refinement or a robbing us of our soul? Probably none of that's true. And the Marxists might tell us that our form of culture is tied to consumption of goods and leisure activities or the means of, I don't know anything about Marxism. The point is, I do like buying stuff and reading things and seeing them. And if that's culture, so be it. I guess my definition for today is going to be, when I'm talking about culture, something that we collectively enjoy or create or admire. And so we'll call that a culture. Our first guest today is a cultural producer, curator, and facilitator at the intersection of music, art, policy, and social justice. She co-created the cultural hub Alte Münze in central Berlin, as well as Art Lake Festival and Feel Festival, contributing to Germany's festival landscape for many years. She's also the co-founder of Awareness Academy, a platform dedicated to promoting safer spaces. Since 2021, she has managed ClubcomissionBerlin, advocating for the political visibility and sustainability of Berlin's club scene. Please, a nice little ovation for Katharin Ahrend. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good.
Yes, really good. I love your immense positivity there. It's not easy to get a Berliner in a gray and rainy day to say they're really good, but perhaps you are lying. No.
Not at all.
Please don't nod, and you got to get it on the record. You have to say it into the microphone. Can I throw maybe a tough question at you right off the bat?
Sure.
Because one of the things about culture is and whether we're preserving something that we're living with is, I guess, is there a heritage when it comes to clubs and club culture? Is that something that exists or that needs to be preserved, or what's your perspective on that?
So the way I think about it is, of course, we have roots of club culture. So where we look back at and where all of this comes from. And I think this is something that we need to preserve, this awareness for the roots of club culture and the club scene, because I think it's specifically important because it comes from different cultural and social movements and social fights, and it's kind of a culture that comes from counterculture. And I think especially in times that are highly capitalized and marketed, it's even more important to talk about this heritage, about the roots of this culture, because we kind of can lose them, or we sell them off and we market them.
So, not to stop you, but I'm always interested in the idea of counterculture as something that you facilitate through mainstream institutions. Like you're advocating, how does it can you help counterculture or preserve counterculture without it becoming culture?
So I think not directly we are preserving counterculture. I think in general the idea of preserving something can be a very conservative and reactionary thing. But what we can highlight and spotlight is what kind of frameworks do we need and conditions for counterculture to be able to exist,
Right.
And that's what we are working on. And right now, when we look at Berlin, the main issue we have is a lack of space, a lack of affordable space, a lack of living space that creative people that used to come to this city can still afford. And as well, looking at people around club spaces, for example, and how they treat these spaces. And now we see a rise of noise complaints and all of these things. So these are different, I would say, issues we try to work on and highlight and address to different audiences and try to find solutions.
Right. So there's probably a difference then in preserving something that's sort of fixed in the past. Like preserving a painting means keeping it away from light and an air-conditioned position. And preserving a living thing, I guess you're more like, it's probably like not the best metaphor, but like a zookeeper, in that you need things to live and thrive and continue.
Exactly.
Our next guest is a professional basketball player getting ready to begin their 8th season of their career. In 2024, she not only led Alba Berlin to win the German championship, but also welcomed her first child into the world. Motherhood changed her life for the better and opened her up to the world of beauty of neurodivergence. Her daughter was born with trisomy 21, otherwise known as Down syndrome. She has been a loud and proud advocate and supporter of inclusion, acceptance ever since, and is a founder of the Let's Get Down campaign. Please join me in welcoming to the show Deeshyra Thomas. So, sport as culture, I think one of the things that really kind of turned my mind around about it was as a transplant from another place, that sport was one of the things that kind of connected and grounded me here. And you've traveled the world as a professional athlete. What has been your experience of sport as culture?
So I've been playing for many years, since I would say I was 6 or 7 years old, and basketball being the sport as the culture that I know dearly. I would say that the definition of the culture in America, you can see it running a little bit differently when you're going to different parts of the world. But the beauty in it and the cultural aspect of it, there are some similarities that it brings you everywhere you go.
Right.
For example, it's something that has the capability to bring people together from all different kinds of backgrounds to enjoy viewing and supporting a common goal. And as well as there are things such as hip-hop music and the style and shoe culture that is something that you find as a common thing everywhere that you're going, and you can relate with others around the world with, as in my experience anyways.
The chuckle there is I was like, check out your shoes, and I'm like, I'm actually not sure what you're wearing here.
Adidas.
Okay.
But I like to get the different ones that you can't
No,
right
yeah,
away.
that's a very subtly branded shoe. Yeah, very cool. It's interesting that, and I'm making this connection now that you grew up in the United States, right? And that basketball is a uniquely, it's not a uniquely American sport anymore, but it was born in America, although James Naismith, I think, was Canadian. It's okay. It's all America on some level. And do you think that part of what makes it accessible to you, or part of what connects all of those cultures together, is something geographical too, or is there a sort of uniquely European version of it that you see?
I would say that for the most part, the thing that people are connecting with is mostly geographical. It's something that you are finding that is brought from the U.S. all over here, or at least in my experience, Europe. That's where I played Europe in the U.S. And it's the things that we are connecting on are similar to what is being brought over here from there. I would say unique differences in Europe has to do with resources and things that are available. I mean, it's a huge difference. The main sport over here is soccer, and
Right.
there are not as many supporters in basketball. Maybe not so many people know of their local club, and in that space, you don't have as many things that are necessary to support all the players. Maybe it's more focused on developing younger players rather than having a full team of professionals and so on.
Yeah. Like pickup basketball courts are a place where I think I've had some of like the most diverse groups of people that I interact with, age-wise, professions, like point of origin, and you know, like you don't need to talk much to all of a sudden be on a team with strangers, and I think that that's like a really interesting experience for me socially, if not culturally, that I don't know a lot of other spaces where I'm just like, okay, you two people are my teammates now, and we're going to touch and share and get along or not.
Yeah.
But I wondered also, though, as you're outside of the court or outside of a game, if you're walking down the street, if there is sort of like a recognition, is there of like, or you walk into a party and I'm like, did you play?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that there's kind of something about the way basketball players carry themselves, the style, and the way that they move that you can almost recognize someone that used to play or if they currently play. And it's almost exactly like you said, like you kind of like give them a look like, do we, you know, like
Right.
we have something in common there. But yeah, I feel like me personally, going around the world and meeting all kinds of different people, different backgrounds, I feel like I immediately spot someone that has this commonality with me and feel like, could there be something there? Like, did you also play? And yeah, I'd say so.
And when it comes to your advocacy and work with neurodivergence, you know, one of the things you participate in and support is Special Olympics. And I'm sort of curious. One thing that I think is interesting about sport and the Olympics is like, that's like, oh, the Olympics is sort of, now this is sort of high culture. I mean, or at least if it's sports are on a Greek urn, then maybe we recognize it as cultural significance, but also in terms of like having an audience and having a way for people to interact and be seen, like, it seems like Special Olympics works. Or I guess my question is, what do you like about the Special Olympics?
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing about sports is it gives people a platform to really come together and showcase their talents, regardless what their backgrounds are, regardless what their abilities are. And I think the thing about Special Olympics is people come and they show up as themselves, uniquely themselves, and they are given an opportunity at a common sport or something that they're also loving, and they are able to, have this sense of inclusion. It's like, hey, I belong. Hey, I have the skill set just as any other person, and I'm going to showcase it right here. And Special Olympics is a place that gives them the opportunity to have that platform and visibility. And I think that's an amazing thing that exists. And I hope that it's continuing to be pushed, and just more awareness and availability is out there for that.
Thank you. Our next guest was born in 1974 and has enjoyed sitting in front of computers since the mid-'80s. He studied English, musicology, and communication research, but mostly wasted his time with video games and the early World Wide Web. Since 2010, he has been working for the Computerspielemuseum, first as a freelancer, later as a technical director, now as exhibition director. He has helped institutions like the Game Museum Berlin, the Kunstmuseum Tallinn, the Deutsches Museum Bonn, and the Swedish Embassy in Berlin to incorporate video games into their exhibitions. A warm welcome to Matthias Oborski. I love the Computerspielemuseum. I'm not a video game guy, but I do love really specific museums. And I had a great time there playing the Pain Station with some unsuspecting in-laws. Maybe more.
That's a great game for in-laws.
Yes, right. We should explain that in a second, but I want to dig in on maybe what's the mission of the Computerspielemuseum?
So our mission is to preserve video games and video game culture, especially. So that does mean that we collect games, but not only the games themselves, but also the culture surrounding it. So the packaging, the hardware, posters, magazines, and all that stuff. And then, even more importantly, we try to make this accessible to the public, because that's very important in every part of culture, I think. It's not really helpful to have it in a cellar somewhere.
Right.
It has to be publicly accessible, and we try to do that.
I mean, it's a small museum compared to some, not.
Yeah, we're probably as big as the housekeeper's loo in the Pergamon.
So is there also a large archives beyond what's on display there?
Yeah, we have a huge archive in numerous places, and it's we always have to find new space, which is kind of the same problem that the club culture has, because rents are really high in Berlin. So yeah.
And when it comes to these archives and what you're preserving, you've been around since 1997. Is that right?
True.
So I assume previous to that, there's probably a lot of things that have disappeared over the years.
Yeah, possibly. It's really hard to know, because the really early computer history and early computer game history is a history of elitist institutions and mainframe computers at some university like MIT or Stanford or Caltech. And I don't know what they did in the 60s. If they don't come forth, I don't know what they did. And
so there were like secret video games at MIT in the 60s being run on like punch cards or something?
Definitely, yes. That was the main purpose of studying at MIT for some people. Really true.
To play video games, the one place you could have a computer.
Because there was one single mainframe computer for the whole university. And you didn't have computers back home. You didn't have smartphones and stuff like that. So where did you get access to a mainframe computer?
What's the oldest example of a video game then?
So the oldest computer game that you can play in our museum is from 1951, and it's called Nimrod. It's by a British company called Ferranti.
Okay.
And it just consists of lamps and buttons, and you have to press buttons in a special order to make them go out.
Is it like an arcade game?
No. Well, it's really hard because we're a podcast and I can't show you pictures, but it's a really big computer. Just imagine a really big cupboard. And it's really big.
Where would one have found one in 1951? Like one guy's apartment or
in Manchester?
Yeah.
at the so-called Festival of Britain, as it was called, because, Germans have the tendency to start world wars. So after World War II, there was this Festival of Britain, so that, Britain wanted to show that we have economy again. And this company tried to show their technology, which was computer technology, but, how do you show computer technology to common people in the 50s? It's a machine that does maths.
Right.
Nothing else.
Right.
And usually a lot of people don't want to look at a machine that's calculating stuff for some reason. So they invented, with their technology, basically a game that you could play. And then they transported it to West Berlin to basically brag about it.
Right.
And the very first German gamer was Ludwig Erhard, because he played it. So.
Oh, he was the first gamer. Okay.
Yeah, well, he wasn't, but he was the first German who played a computer game.
And I don't mean to sound more ignorant than I do without.
Yeah.
Is this someone I should know who this is?
This was the first Minister of Economics of the Federal Republic of Germany.
Oh, I should definitely know that.
No, you shouldn't.
Hope that's not on my citizenship test.
No. And he was being watched by his chancellor, Konrad Adenauer.
Oh my God! I hope he did really good at Nimrod. Did he get the lights to light up? What's the high score on Nimrod?
Oh, you can just win or lose. There's no score.
I like that. Before the invention of scoring.
And usually the human being loses.
Just by the fact that they're playing it, you mean? Or?
No, because you can't win. It's impossible to win.
Over a long enough period of time, everyone
sorry
loses.
to spoil that.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
You can't win if you start the game. But anyway.
Joining the stage now is a Finnish, Berlin-based, non-binary and queer comic artist. Their work explores subcultures and queer communities, social norms, and the looming climate catastrophe through offbeat, prickly humor. In their ink drawings, darkness waltzes with hope, urban topographies sink into forestation as punk rock blasts through the northern landscapes. Please, a warm round of applause for Henna, Räsänen, a.k.a. HX. So in the grand scheme of culture, where do we put comic books? Is it literature? Is it art? What is it? How do we do? Is it a literature book? It's a book, right?
Yeah, well, that's often the question, right? Like it is and it isn't literature, right? Like there's comics that are more on the literature side, like focus more on the book publishing, and then we have comics that are more on the visual arts. And of course, for me, like if you ask me, like you're asking now, comics is an art form its own. It's like something entirely else. Like you can make comics without text, right? And then it's up to debate if you can make comics without picture. But like that's another question here. Like, is just a panel with text enough to be a comic? You tell me.
I'll go with yes.
Yeah.
I figure I'm guessing that's the right answer, but so this might be a Nimrod situation where I lose just by playing. So was working in comics one of the first art forms you got into? Is it what drew you into art, or did you come at it from another direction?
Like I started with comics already 2008 with the blog. And before that, I was drawing already, probably like since I managed to get the pencil on my hands, like as a child. But yeah, like comics for me has been kind of the prevalent way of telling stories. Like I'm a narrative comic artist in my heart. I'm a storyteller, and I love other storytellers. There's also, of course, I also love the abstract, more avant-garde comics, which is maybe more what you would see in an exhibition, but not
an exhibition like on a wall.
On a wall.
So is it different to create a comic book that's not going to be flipped through with someone's fingers, and instead someone's going to walk by it?
Yeah, that's my feeling. Like, so the last book that I have published, it's a collaboration book with a Finnish comic colleague of mine, Kimmo Lust. So this one actually started that we were making art to be an exhibition, right? We're making stories for exhibition and something to be in a window exhibition at that. So I'm drawing like bigger than normal. And then like in the end, of course, we wanted to have a book as well. So in this case, like the story, this page came first. as a bigger one, and then they shrunk into the pages. Yeah.
And in terms of, I mean, what's the experience then of display? I mean, I guess one of the things that happens with the comic book is you don't get to see people reading it unless you sort of follow them home from the convention. So what's it like interacting with your audience once it's exhibited?
Yeah, that's right. Like usually comic creation can be quite a lonely thing that you're drawing on your own. I mean, of course, people also do work like in the big companies. They work in teams, but like we have tendency like in the independent comics that we're working alone, and then there's festivals like Comic Invasion or Build a Back Conference. That's the Underground Comics Conference or festival in Berlin. Like these have such an impact on us as an artist that you can meet with the audience, right? And sometimes people are reading the comics on the table, and you can have a little interaction about that. So that's
right.
Of course like why we do it, right?
I mean, that's fun, and I also think it's a unique cultural interaction to comic books. I mean, I guess there's other types of conventions, but not normally is there just rows of creators at booths willing to talk to you and share their stuff and sign it and draw a little picture of you for like $5. It's great. You guys can go out to like Comic Invasion or the independent one. It's like, man, what a great deal on portraiture. But like, is that also part of the draw? Like, you know, if you got into the blogs, I assume that was part of a blog community, right? So even though it's a lonely thing, is part of what makes comic books for you work, the people that you're meeting?
Like if I'm doing my comic books for the readers, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, of course, you know, like I do have I feel like all artists have, or many artists have just like a general need for creating, but of course, I want the stories to be read by people. Yeah, and I mean, like, of course, in the conventions or festivals, we're meeting with other comic artists and other fans and readers and so on. So
I have a question for the panel, and we can jump in and talk. You can just ignore me and talk amongst yourselves as well. But one of the things I'm curious about is where you see in computer games, in comics, in club culture, in sport, and in anything else you guys engage in, other mediums and other art forms interacting, either coming out of it or coming into it or being supported by it or vice versa.
Yeah, I just thought when I was listening to all of you that all of the art and culture forms you are talking about, they are meeting as well in club culture, in the club or whatever. There's dance, there's definitely the influence of the aesthetics of computer games and music and in fashion that we see in club spaces. There's comic art, there's the whole culture around zines that is happening within the self-organized club culture, and as well like safer spaces movement. So all of these things come there, and I think that's as well how I see club culture is like a palette and an intersection that's bringing different art forms together as well. We have music, you have performance, you have fashion, and it's sending impulses into these like different sections, and they are coming back and they are becoming fruitful together. And I think as well that's something a lot of people don't understand because the main mission of the Club Commission where I'm working at is to really advocate for club culture as a form of culture. So telling people that this is a form of culture, and because there are all these ideas of it's not Hall culture, it's a kind of business.
Okay.
It's a space where people gather to get wasted or to get entertained, but they don't see the culture part in it. But that's just really one part. But the main thing is really the culture, as you were saying, like people are coming together and people are enjoying something and get inspired and are contributing to something and get creative in various forms.
Sorry, if anyone else want to jump in there. Deeshyra, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was kind of going to go off of what you were saying a little bit along the lines of music and style and fashion. I would say that these are a few of the things that I touched on earlier that kind of like emerged itself within the culture of basketball, and something that kind of has been an inspiration as well for like fashion lines for when it comes to like the latest thing that's in, or for example, there are things that have been from Black culture that have been immersed into basketball culture with the hip hop music. That's not just the music that they're listening to, and then you go to the clothes that they're wearing, and then you see the players on the court wearing these things and trends that are starting, and you see that it has quickly become immersed into basketball culture. But I would say that there's a lot of pieces that have come from other areas and other cultures that makes up basketball culture as a whole.
Does your team have like the fashion crew? Is there anyone who's like...
I would say, I mean, like everyone has their own style, but I definitely like to keep up on latest fashion trends. But for myself, I like to be very different from others, so I like to kind of also mix different things and come up with something new until someone else takes it, and then I have to move on.
One thing that strikes me about all of this stuff, yeah, I do have an American high school education, and Matthias is... Video games, I think, for outsiders are viewed as something that's sort of done in isolation or maybe antisocial. And, you know, when I was a kid, there were arcades. You see them less now. But there's also, I also remember as a kid there being the culture, the sort of zine culture that went along with, you know, distributing video games from like someone handing you a copy of a disc the same way you would get a mixtape. So, like, what are maybe some of the social and cultural aspects of video games that we might not know about?
Well, usually the most popular games today are games that you play together with others.
Oh.
They're just not in the same room with you, usually. You play online. You play online games. You know, I think everybody knows Fortnite.
I know the words.
And, well, yeah, it's an English word, but
I know that it's a video game.
It's also the name of a video game. So you play these games online with your friends or with your enemies or whatever. So video games are a very social space as well. Sometimes you don't see it because when you look at it from the outside, it's just some random person sitting in front of a screen.
Right.
But it's usually much more social today than let's say in the 90s or so. And also there's this thing called esports, which is quite huge in Asia. Mm-hmm. So people competing against each other in competitive computer gaming.
Okay.
So this is
right.
I mean, there's a lot of money in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the money, I'm pretty sure there's some equation where money and culture are either the same or the opposite. I'm not sure. But is there, in terms of like the spaces that people find and define for themselves, is there also like a DIY existence in video games?
Oh, sure. Especially today, because it's so much easier, because the tools are so much easier to use right now. There's a huge, gigantic indie scene, and people can develop a single game themselves. And there's so much going on right now with expression of people who weren't seen in the last decades. Minorities can do games now.
When did that rule change?
Well,
I'm joking. I'm sorry.
It's not that good, but it's getting better, I think, because now you don't have to apply for a job in a company anymore to make a video game. So you can do it at home, maybe. Or because we now have the internet, you can find other people like you, because we're all connected now. And we all have bubbles and stuff like that.
On the World Wide Web. So speaking of minority representation, I think that's another interesting crossover into all of what we've spoken today. Your comics are queer. Bars, clubs have been queer spaces, and importantly so in Berlin and around the world. Women's basketball is one of the most visible places, I think, for queer faces, at least in my opinion. Is supporting these cultures inherently, even though some of them are still, basketball is still male-dominated, comic books are male-dominated, video games are male-dominated, I'm sure clubs are male-dominated, right? So how do we support these cultures, but in a way that makes them progressive and inclusive?
I mean, in terms of basketball and women's basketball, I would actually say the last couple years are some of the greatest in the history of their growth, and how you see how well they can thrive when the right tools are given to them, when the right visibility is there, when they are given these spaces and platforms all over social media, and these things that are circling around, you're watching it like just grow like crazy in numbers. And it's just a simple example is like if you just give them the same resources, the same platforms, the same availability, then I think it will naturally and uniquely just grow on its own. And you would be surprised at how many people say, "Oh, it's not. There's no audience for it. There's no people that are watching it." It's like, well, give it a chance, put it out there, and see who actually wants to turn it on or not. In terms of basketball, turn on the other stuff. Maybe.
Yeah, from comics perspective, of course, I have to bring up the cuts in culture, right? Which like hanging on everyone's necks right now from like different visual or literature or like different art scenes anyway. And like, of course, one thing is that like if there's no funding, how that affects the like artists is that funding gives us time and space like to make our comics, and if we don't have that time and space to focus on it, this means that only specific like people who maybe have already generational wealth or something, with specific people who are able to focus. Other voices will drop out. Or like, if you have to have a full-time job and maybe like kids and so on, and you're drawing at the middle of a night, like the comic that now takes 10 years to make is going to make like 30 or something. So maybe, artists are still going to keep creating, but like, are we going to be able to, we as readers, to be able to get this? One is, of course, also like if there's no funding, like external funding, this means corporations are the ones who are deciding which comics are coming for us to read, like big companies, Marvel, DC. I'm not known to spit on a superhero comic myself, but regardless, this will be the most like prevalent voices. Okay, so. Yeah, of course, in comics, you are always like welcome to support us directly by buying some of our zines. Yeah. Very like, unsurprising answer, but yeah. So.
Yeah. Katharin, this is a big part of what you do. And I saw a post on Instagram the other day, and it was PAing for Flinta, I believe, or I can't remember exactly how it was phrased. And I immediately was like, oh, that'd be great. I think a lot more people need to know how to PA for Flinta performers, but I think it was also, I think I might have misread it because
No, it's basically, when we look at the structure that is still very male-dominated, then it's like the people who are owning and managing clubs, and as well when we look in the whole technical sphere, then it's very male-dominated. We see more and more Flinta DJs and artists coming up and being represented, but the deeply rooted structure is still like very male-dominated. At the same time, when we look at the roots of club culture, it has this queer roots, like that's where it's coming from the queer and the trans community. And it has always been the space for them and for all of us to be free, to let go, and to be whatever we want to be. And I think to keep this and to support this and preserve this, we need to think about how can we keep these spaces free and non-regulated, and as well away from being overexposed and completely documented in the digital sphere and so on and so forth. And that's why as well it's such a big thing in Berlin, because we still have no photos on the dance floor, and it's still one of the last spaces where you can just be on your own and not be on your phone all the time. And at the same time, it becomes a way bigger struggle right now, because we see this political shift to the right, and it's a reality. So in the past months, we have seen more and more queer spaces being attacked. We have 3 bars that got attacked with queer and transphobe attackers, and we as well get reported from nightclub workers who have who are queers who get attacked when they leave the space. So this is as well a reality. So we really have to think about, okay, how can we preserve this and how can we make this safe? And
the spaces are around the space.
Exactly, and as well be aware of what's happening, because the club spaces are the first, and the queer space is the first to be attacked right now in this climate. And that's as well why it's a big part of our work that we think about this and try to, make this even put this in the spotlight, because no one is really talking about it, what all of this like media shift and political shift actually means in the day-to-day business of the people who are non-conformist in our society, and where they go is the club spaces. So
one thing that we've sort of dabbled in a bunch of this is this idea of what's new or cool or cutting edge or it is fashion. And I wonder, in some of these spaces that are carved out to either participate or create that, or to be outside of it, how do you think about the interactions of when comic books become more mainstream in the superhero world, or when video games go from being maybe a niche thing for people to love themselves, or when all of these things happen? I mean, is there a double-edged sword there?
Well, yes and no. It's comic books, I think. Almost every movie you see today on a poster is based on a comic book, but the artists themselves who create the comics, they don't get that money. Right. So it's nice that comic books are now in the mainstream, even in the most popular mainstream there is. But that doesn't help the individual artists, not much, I think. And I think it's the same with video games. Video games it's almost like the video game industry is almost like the movie industry, but much, much, much bigger. So all the problems that the movie industry has, the video games industry has as well. So you have the big names, the blockbusters that everybody knows, and there's really a lot of money involved in that. But if you're an individual developer or you have a small studio and you want to make something different, you can do that now, but it's still hard to make money or to make a living out of it. So on the one hand, you have this growth, this really big industry, and on the other hand, you have the individuals who don't profit from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds like about right for comics as well. In a way that we have this couple of big companies that everybody knows, that we mentioned already, and then if we talk as comics as comics as an art form, the fight to be recognized is kind of still continuous. Like Berlin has 2 grants that are explicitly for comics. Only 2. This year, 3 people got the other one, and the other one got 1. Like this is a residency. So this is not a lot of support available in a way. So if you're listening to this, amp that up. Like that said, I think I would say like associations in Finland and also here, there's we are trying to get recognition as an art form specifically, right? Before going way many questions back, I wanted to say about this, how comics are connecting with other forms, what we're forms of art that we're talking about today. Games, of course, there's a big friendship between game and comic. Also with sports, there's quite a few of comics that are about sports. We're not really famous for being athletic comic artists, but we can draw about it. Sometimes we have great ideas about it. And music, of course,
I forgot flyers.
Yeah, flyers.
Yeah.
And this I gotta say first that a lot of comic festivals are in music venues, and Comic Invasion used to be at Urban Spree. I don't know, all of my or most of my zines have also a playlist on them. So in that way, this is moment for me to drop this, that I'm actually looking for someone to do a score for my upcoming graphic novel.
Awesome.
So, you know, I guess someone's listening. But yeah, the flyers, like this is kind of like used to be quite a big thing, like that we're doing like the flyers. Now I feel like where we see the cuts, you know, like where everybody's struggling, that most of the venues or like festivals are not probably able to afford anymore. Like this is the first thing you're cutting, and then we got AI, of course, that's coming into the discussion now.
One of the things that I wanted to touch on is what could disappear? What is part of your worlds culturally that could vanish? We've established that clubs rely on spaces, but I think we've also found, in some cases, new spaces and things like that. So within the realms of your expertise, like, what is it that you are creating or that you're participating in that we need to fight to keep alive?
I would say in terms of basketball, with it not being so big in many other countries and the funding is far too low, I would say that you have the risk to lose leagues altogether, depending on the country that it is based in. And the U.S., for example, so many American players are leaving to play in other countries because there's just not the capacity to hold a space on a team for how many players that there are every year coming out of college in comparison to, I believe now, 14 teams that there are in the entire United States. Yes, they're talking about expanding. Yes, they're talking about we're trying to get bigger and add more teams. However, in comparison to the amount of people that you have that are hungry to play professionally, they have no other choice than to go across the globe to try to pursue that dream and continue to play at another level competitively, professionally. And you find that in some countries that you may go to, you're like, okay, I'm here, but I see that it's not quite at the professional level. And you find out that over the years they're losing money, teams are moving down, you're not having enough players in the league. Okay, now we have to take away the top league, and now we only have lower leagues that aren't as professional. And this is something that is at risk if it's the support isn't there, the money's not there.
Several things I'm thinking about. Besides space, I think sometimes I'm very, like, we at the Club Commission are very afraid that we lose an affordable scene, meaning who's still able to pay the entrance to a club, to a party. We come from a time where in Berlin you could pay 10 euros and you could go to 4 clubs in one night and you could hop. And that would be as well a culture. It's actually for a usual standard person now, impossible. And then you look at marginalized people who are usually even more precarious. It's even worse. So it's something we are very worried about and where we try to work around.
How do you work around that?
First of all, talk about these conditions and understand where it's coming from. Why is everything more expensive? And it's not just the space that gets more expensive. It's all the costs we still carry around from the pandemic. It's the energy crisis we had. It's as well like salaries of the people rising and all of these things coming together. So understanding this and trying to see, okay, where can we help with funding? Where can other things help? And as well bring different people and actors together to collaborate. So be creative, but before you need to talk about it.
Is part of what's changed, I mean, the spaces I can remember when we were averaging €2.50 for entrance were like, there were no fire exits. You know, like I
mean, don't get me started about this whole regulation thing, you know, because it is great that everything is safer now and, you know, like well taken care of. At the same time, I think we reached a point where certain things are so over-regulated that they kind of come into your way while you're trying to create something that is accessible to everyone. And I think this is really a thing we should way more look into in the future, to look at these different processes and see which one of them makes sense and which one of them don't really make sense or could be done in a way that it's still possible for a new collective that wants to start out to throw a party without spending thousands of euros just to do everything in the right way.
Yeah.
So
or it's thousands of hours. I think a lot of times I'm very happy that like now we have fire exits. When I
absolutely,
but
that's
also,
not the thing I want to change.
Yeah, but I mean, but the number of hours it takes to find out, do you have the right stairs, and and did you apply for the permit to see if the regulations are fit before you did the building of the permit for the inspection?
Yes.
And it seems like not so much the regulation, but a lot of times the bureaucracy. And
I think
is more of a nightmare, and also like a bigger obstacle for people with, you can raise as much money as you can for an event, amongst, the people who are going to handle your GoFundMe, but it doesn't mean you're going to be able to sort through all of those forms and get to the bottom of the funding or know what's available or even know who to ask what to do.
Exactly. 100%. Bureaucracy is a huge, huge topic. It's as well where our work comes in, like when you are like a newbie and you want to try to figure out how to do this, and then you see all these documents and then they come to us and we have like different structures and different groups, working groups, trying to support people finding their way and navigating, and as well trying to find tools to lower the barriers in terms of bureaucracy. So that's a huge thing. And one thing what I'm sometimes scared of that we are losing is like this great diversity of culture, and especially of club culture, because what it makes so unique here in Berlin is that there's anything for any niche, and so many different things and so many different genres, art forms, ways of expression, spaces and their design and so on. But it's kind of the same dynamic as you were saying with the computer games. There are like this, in the comics, there are these big players. Mm-hmm. There are DJs who are getting crazy fees, but are as well like promoters and huge companies and empires who are like buying festivals and venues and monopolizing them and kind of destroying a diversity and an authentic diversity.
Or mining authentic scenes for a few posts for their campaign on Instagram. And, which, by the way, I mean, I do love when someone's going to give me money to post about me on Instagram.
Yeah.
There's always that thing of like, yeah, I'll take it. It's not tobacco. Okay.
Absolutely. But there's a difference between exploitation and appreciation of this.
Sure.
And I think that's something
it's hard to tell from the inside whether you're being exploited or not. But I one of the things you've done, I've seen recently, is you've been interacting, going to other nations, traveling, seeing how things are being done there, getting new ideas. But also on the panel, we've got a Finnish comic book artist, an American athlete. Matthias, you're German, but that's fine. That's a country too. I'm sure you've. But on your CV, you're going to museums outside of here and interacting with different embassies. So I'm kind of curious in terms of, again, like our concept of culture, how you are seeing your cultures represented or participated in differently in different countries, or whether maybe you're seeing fresher things when you travel, or, like where does the rest of Europe play into this, the rest of the world?
I think pop culture in general is quite good at showing us what society is about and how society changes. And you can see that in pop culture much better than in other points of, I don't know, social interactions. My go-to example is always look at the hair of the Beatles in 62 and then in 68, and you understand the 60s somewhat, at least. And you can see that in all parts of pop culture, whether it's the way you dress, the way you listen to music, or what music to listen to, what comic books you read, and what music is played in clubs. That does tell us about changes in society.
And
if you travel,
cross-borders.
and if you travel across the world, especially the Western world, it's all the same. You think, and you're there, and it is all the same. And they have the McDonald's and whatever, but the slight differences are there, and you can see those differences. I think best in pop culture.
So, can you give me an example in video game culture? What, like a Royale with cheese example?
Yeah. So being German.
Yeah.
And you know that Germans don't like to have fun.
Oh, I think
usually
that's unfair.
So
I think no. You know what? I am going to fight back. We're going to derail this conversation. I think Germans love having fun, and they will plan and set aside
if
time
it's
for
regulated.
it. And you can you're laughing, and I am not making. I am being earnest. When you put it like you think I'm so cool and relaxed, I'm still in my hotel room. And why is that person putting out a towel on a beach chair that they're planning to get to in an hour? It's because they're already having fun. Like their joy starts the minute they wake up. So I think Germans have a lot of fun. It just doesn't look like it.
They're having fun annoying the British, right?
So anyway.
What was the question?
Your point was, I was asking for a Royale Chase, an example of how you see video game culture expressed differently.
In Germany, in 1984, arcade games were outlawed. That's why I said Germans don't like to have fun. They outlawed arcade video games. They just said it was like gambling, and gambling you have to be over 18 or over 21, and nobody is allowed to see it because addiction and stuff.
Right.
So that's German government for you.
Okay, but they're legal now.
Then we have this German video game culture that's very austere, I think. In the 80s and 90s, we had games like Fußballmanager, right? And
so
right,
all right.
Which is basically, for those who don't know what that is, you know what a spreadsheet calculation is, right? It's the same thing. It's like Microsoft Excel, just in your spare time.
Right.
And was hugely popular in all the German-speaking countries. And I'm not excluding Austria and Switzerland. There's the same not fun-loving people.
I think Excel's an underrated game.
Yeah, maybe.
When you get when you go deep, it can be.
So you have these economic simulations. You could simulate the Hanse in the late medieval period and early modern day. You could simulate a football club, but not the fun part of it, not playing, but managing it, right? You could adjust ticket prices. You could buy players, sell players. You could, get new sponsors and everything. And then the actual game was we won 2-0. That was it's true. I'm not being funny here.
Yeah,
because I'm German. So
you're being hilarious, and you're filled with joy right now talking about this game.
Yeah, because it's so good. So, and if you go to North America,
right,
where you have Call of Duty, like you have to go to war for your country, and that didn't turn out that well in Germany. So we don't have these kinds of games here. And then you have Japan, which is insane. There are so many games only published in Japan because nobody outside of Japan would get them. You have a subway simulator where you just sit in the subway and press a button, and then the train stops and the train.
And you're telling me that's not popular in Germany?
Well, maybe if they added a financial angle to it, right? And you have a walking the dog simulator in Japan, stuff like that. And really hilarious, surreal things. There's a dating sim where you can date a pigeon. So it's called, Hattevoll Boyfriend. And you're a pigeon.
Okay, that's an important distinction. It's a pigeon dating a pigeon.
Yeah, a pigeon dating a pigeon, but they go to university. And they... I don't know.
I love that you're just telling us dreams you had.
Yeah. And they act like human beings.
Yeah.
But if you look at the screen, they're pigeons. So
Yeah.
that's Japan for you. So you see all these cultural differences in every entertainment medium, and of course in video games as well.
Katharin, I'm curious, like, are you seeing like cutting edge club stuff happening outside of Berlin? You know, or as part of what happening have we jumped the?
Yeah. So, I mean, your question was, is this kind of important for our work to see other countries or cities and their cultures? And for us, it's really, really inspiring. And we even have a program at the Club Commission where we send different delegations. So taking people from the active club scene here and bringing them to other cities, like relevant club cities, and get them into exchange with actors there on site. And we have been to Barcelona, Copenhagen, Warsaw. Last thing we were at was Tbilisi. In Georgia, and that was really something wow for me, because I was like, it kind of reminds me where club culture comes from and what it actually means, because there with the rough time there and the political challenges and as well the political shift, the club spaces are the spaces who started the protest right. For democracy, for being pro-European, for the queer scene, the trans community. They were formed out of the club spaces, and that's how they identify themselves as well. So I found that really, really inspiring, and as well bringing me back to, okay, where we actually come from and what all of this means, and like this radical, like culturally radical thing in it. But at the same time, when we talk about regulation, I've seen the wildest things. I've seen a club under a football stadium, an operating football stadium. I've seen a club in like...
Wait, did they know that there was a club there?
Yeah.
Okay.
It goes together, you know. I have no idea how, but it's the biggest techno club, Basiani, happening under the football stadium. And I've never seen something like this before. I've seen a club in an old historical fish restaurant that's almost falling into the river. I have seen a club in a bridge, like things that would be impossible here, even in the crazy 90s Berlin, maybe. So I found that really inspiring, and I think it helps to go outside of your bubble and to go in other countries and other places to see how are they managing with the current circumstances and what kind of ways do they find to cope with it and to support and empower each other. And as well, of course, from a policy level, to look at the nighttime policy and the cultural policy going on. And there's a lot we can learn from other cities around the globe, even though Berlin is a great city, but sometimes you don't see...
so when you see a club in a dilapidated fish, like what's the takeaway? Like, what do you come back ready to do?
It really reminded us and how really over-regulation is kind of killing the vibe. And that regulation in some way is important, but that we really have to look where it makes sense and whatnot, like the things I was saying. So it reminded us of this, and as well it reminded us about the spirit. So it kind of was just very motivating. And I think for everyone who traveled, we were like over 40 people traveling from Berlin, and they all got so inspired in their own work here and brought this like mindset back.
Henna, in comic books, I mean, you have the conventions, people travel for that. You're a Finnish working here. Do you see throughout Europe or around the world different cultures and different types of expression? Or do you see more that they're connected through comic books and expressing themselves in similar ways? I mean, what is your perspective on that?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, there's different festivals, and yeah, I mean, like I've been generally in different festivals in Europe, so there are, of course, different influences, like different ways. There's a comic festival in Rome that's in an old prison, for example. Like, you know, in this way, I'm reminded of this, that where you've seen these clubs, I'm like, yeah, there's old prison, there's like, like outdoor, like tents or whatever, you know, like museum in Berlin, we have a festival in Museum for Kommunikation and so on, like, of course, different ways. Yeah, I was thinking about before in this, like how like protest that you were mentioning, protest, and how comics have been generally well used for political purposes, like my queer agenda or whatnot, as an example. And like one thing is that with comics, we can often talk about things that you can't talk about otherwise, you could not make, like you would, for example, if you're making queer erotica, in like way back in time, this might land you in like serious problems. However, Tom of Finland may draw comics of the imagination. Eh?
So Tom of Finland, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course, have to mention Tom of Finland.
Is Tom of Finland Finnish?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I just thought it was a name. Never occurred to me.
Yeah. Dog Laaksonen. Yep. Anyway. Yeah, and of course, when we're thinking about, I think like from this famous club institutions in Berlin, there's been a club that we all love and appreciate, that there's like no camera there, so that you can relax when you're partying. However, like I know that a couple of the clubs have commissioned comic artists to make like a kind of picture of this.
That's true. Yeah.
Oh,
like there was this one famous person drawing at Berghain, for example.
Yeah, so that's as a thought, like it's not, of course, like on the clubs is more on the like fun side, but of course that we can also, like there are ways to talk about, like one colleague of mine puts it, like which one of my trauma should I which one of my trauma should I like make into entertainment today, like turn into entertainment today. So that's kind of the other side that we can also talk about, very like, like traumatic things or whatnot, and make it into a like graphic novel, which then may become like a game. Call of Duty. All right.
Call of Trauma.
Or the Excel game. I'm
There's
really into
actually
that.
there is a video game called Trauma.
I mean, I bet, yeah. Yeah, but I mean,
one of the first games I remember having on the Apple II was it was a therapist. It was that you could talk to.
Eliza?
Yeah, Eliza.
Yeah.
It was like, you guys think ChatGPT is something new. We had it in 1984.
1966, actually. Right?
Really?
Just 2 months.
Well, I didn't have it in 1966 because I was a zygote. Before we wrap up, I wanted to see if there's anything anybody wanted to add to the conversation or ask each other before I come to my conclusions.
How many people attend a typical basketball game when you play? That's a serious question, actually.
I know, but it sounds like someone who really wants to simulate it as a manager.
No, because...
What is the ticket prices? I don't mean to do the voice.
Okay, so
Yes. Yeah.
I've been watching the Women's Euros.
Yeah.
And there were quite a lot of people in the stadiums. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
So when it comes to our numbers, I would say it's not a great comparison to women's basketball in Germany, because I would say Berlin is at a different level when it comes to our fan base and the support that we're getting. We're very fortunate. I mean, we are combined together with a very successful men's team. And when it comes to promoting and supporting the women's side, it comes from one account. So it's like everyone that's seeing the men's stuff, you're seeing it on the women's side. They're seeing the women's things as well. And they have an algorithm that I feel like that they are able to use on both sides, whereas a lot of the women-ran clubs or the women's clubs in Germany, they are usually on their own, and they are building on their own as a women's sport. And as you know, the comparison to men's, there's not always that funding, there's not always that support and visibility. So our games, we always average the most in the league and the highest attendance record. We continue to break our own record. But I would say we average about 1,500 to 1,700 fans per game. And we have only been in the league going on our 4th season. And so we won the championship after our 2nd, and that also did some growth there. But and then you can go and travel to another city and you see maybe 50 to 100 fans, and you can see that there's a big gap there.
Are you getting like when you travel now? Are you seeing like your Alba scarves? Is there like an away section?
We have a fan club, and so there are fans that will travel to our away games, and sometimes there's more of our fans there. It's pretty crazy, but yeah, I mean, we have a great support system on the women's side.
That's super cool. I'm sure the games are super fun. Like, when does the season start?
Preseason starts in a couple of weeks in mid-August. Regular season will start beginning October.
All right. I'm going to do a kind of last question with everybody or for everybody so that we can come to an ending here. I think what I'm curious about is someone maybe who's listening and is like, oh, I hadn't thought of that as culture, or I haven't thought to participate in that, or I didn't know that there was a space for me within video games or within sport. Like, if somebody is like, I want in, how do they find their way in to the things you guys are interested in?
Well, from comics, which like I didn't say it before, but I thought about it, like how democratic form of art comics is. Like, you can basically start by picking up pen and paper, or like, like anything that you can draw on. Mm-hmm. Maybe some sand and a stick, like, which makes it a bit more performance durational. I'm giving these ideas away for free now, like. But if you want,
I like that. Comic book mandala sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. But like, come to the conventions, festivals, come talk to us. Like, come in Berlin. There's a comic artist meetup at the Renate Comic Bibliothek. And Renate is, by the way, at the moment looking for space as well. So like in that way, come talk to us, and hopefully in the new Renate, if you know of a new space to offer to them, great. And also, of course, like, I can be reached from socials at henna.räsänen. Right. Feel free to give me a shout out. And also, of course, we're all like buy our comics.
We'll put the link. We'll put the link for that in the description. I mentioned it at the top. I think a great way, if you're interested, maybe you're not a video game player, but you want to check out the Video Game Museum. Is the Pain Station still there?
Yes, it is.
Could you maybe explain what it is?
Okay,
so it's one of my top recommendations for tourists or locals who haven't done it yet.
It's an artwork done by crazy Germans from Cologne. And maybe you remember the video game Pong. It's just a very, very simple game, just a tennis game. It goes ping and pong and ping and pong. So, and you play that on the Pain Station, but if you don't play well enough, you get hurt with real pain. You have to put your left hand on some kind of buttons there, and if you don't play well enough, you get hurt by either a whip or electroshocks or heat. So, and whoever removes the left hand first loses. So that's... So that's art. It's like, honestly, art. It's really it's a wonderful experience. It has been in the MoMA in New York as well.
So there you go.
It's officially high art now.
Back to your question, if someone wants to get into the club zone, you mean?
Right. I mean, I can't stay up late.
Yeah. So then you would probably more reach out to the Club Commission to do some advocacy work. If you are interested in this, you can just meet us at any of our roundtables, workshops. We have a lot of network events where you can just come. It's as well a great place to get connected to people who are like running the scene. Besides that, I just recommend everybody to go out and dance. And if you find your favorite party, and there are just so many collectives now in Berlin who organize themselves, very DIY. They're always looking for support or community members. So you could just reach out while you're leaving the club at the door, say, hey, do you need any support? Write them on Instagram or whatever. So I think just really reach out and see where you can help when you really want to get involved.
And I think when I look at the range of things that you're supporting and working with, club has a very broad definition. Mm-hmm. It's not just a dark and I think it's really worth mentioning, like, that you're working with so many. The definition of club is broad.
Yeah, the definition of club is broad. It's like this club. We we have in our minds when we think about Berlin clubs, but it's as well like the concert venue that is doing a lot of club stuff or club concerts, the community space, the interims usage, the art gallery that turns into a rave space, the open air happening onto, I don't know, in the basement or in the backyard of anything, you know? Like
I like the open air in the basement. Now we're getting
that's
really...
not,
No.
you know, like that's like
how they do it in Tbilisi.
There's a lot of stuff happening, especially with like the shortage of space. The idea of space becomes very broad.
Deeshyra?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time when you see people interested in starting sports, they're typically are younger and looking to join a youth team. And I would say in these terms, summer camps are like the number one place. They're open to anyone, any level, to just come in and just learn some new things, get connected with coaches and clubs, and to maybe land yourself on a team. If there's no summer camp available, there's always tryouts happening. And I would say if you're interested, I would go online. That's like your biggest tool, and search your local club, and there should be some information there. And if you are not a young kid and you still want to follow your dreams, play a sport, same thing. I would say you look for online, like somebody that you can contact, an email, or look for the nearest tryout, because although there are like professional teams where you think that the choice of the players is always very calculated, there are opportunities where they do host a trial and the opportunity is there.
And you can work your way up from the Kreisliga to, well, I've never made it past that. I mean, one of the things I think in America that's different about basketball, and then I think you see it growing here, is there is like a festival aspect, and there are events, and like you're from Portland. I used to live there, and there was like a big 3-on-3 tournament. It was sort of held in conjunction with the NBA team, but completely its own thing. And I feel like that's a space, because basketball is so accessible, and you see people's faces and you're close to them and you can pick up a ball, and it's just, you know, you need a rim and you don't need a lot of people. Is that something that you see growing here at all, or is it something that we still need to find more of?
I definitely think that there's space for that to grow even more here, and I think that also comes with popularity around the sport and just availability. You know, if someone comes and they see something going on, especially in Berlin, they might stop by to try to check it out, and then you never know, they might find their lost love for basketball. And I would say the difference there as well, to someone that is looking to get into the sport, like back there, events like this is kind of a platform for you to showcase your talents. People are watching from everywhere, and they might just see you at a 3-on-3 tournament or some type of summer game, and then they land you on a college basketball scholarship or something, and that's a difference in the States in comparison to here, where you have to email someone for a tryout.
Right. Thank you all so much. This has been really fun. I hope you had a great time. We'll put this episode out soon, and we'll get some nice feedback and some nice connections, and we'll see all of this grow. There are 2 more episodes in this series. We'll be recording one in September at Podfest Berlin, and another in October back here at the CCB studios. Before I go, I just want to again say, like, go out and see all the culture that's happening around you. Know that it could disappear at any moment, that we have to keep it fresh, but we have to preserve it. And it's none of it's easy, but it's all none of it's simple, but it's all very easy. So that's it for today. Thank you. Round of applause for everyone who came out in the audience, for Katharin, Henna, Matthias, Katharin, my team at EAB. Man, keep clapping. You got to keep clapping. Manuel and Caroline and Lucas and Janine. Trevor Silverstein, who is helping us out. Technical support from Podfest Berlin, and everybody, everywhere, all the time. Good night. Thank you.
Berlin News in English.